the bustling sound of live music mixed with the sound of laughter. The shimmering lights reflected on the gorgeous evening gowns, creating a lavish scene in the banquet hall of the five-star hotel. It was a grand birthday party that Mai, Lin's older sister, held to celebrate her 30th birthday. Mai, with her radiant appearance in an exquisitely designed dress, exuded the aura of a successful, confident woman. But Lin's eyes, standing in a corner of the room, were filled with jealousy and a deep hatred. Lin quietly observed her older sister. Her sharp eyes seemed to penetrate the flashy makeup. Mai was not only beautiful, successful in her marketing career, but was also about to enter a lavish marriage with a rich man. The image of Mai smiling, showing off her sparkling diamond ring and luxurious wedding invitation design photos, made Lin feel like she had been stabbed in the heart. She has everything, Lin whispered, her voice choked. The difference between the two sisters' lives was like an open wound, constantly bleeding in her heart. While Mai was surrounded by wealth, Lin had to struggle to make a living with a low-paying graphic design job, struggling to live in a small rented apartment. Not only was there a difference in material things, Lin always felt abandoned by Mai, treated unfairly since childhood. Today, the humiliation was even more bitter. Some of Mai's friends, not knowing that Lin was her sister, did not hesitate to make sarcastic comments about Lin's simple appearance and ordinary job. Mai's sister? She doesn't look very outstanding. She probably does some normal job. Those words were like sharp arrows stabbing straight into Lin's self-esteem. That night, in the small room, Lin looked back at the pictures from the party, her heart filled with hatred. Mai's comments and boasting were all like catalysts for the fire of hatred in her heart to flare up fiercely. "I will take revenge on you," Lin swore silently, her eyes flashing with determination. Lin began to plan meticulously. She secretly learned about Mai's wedding plans through social networks and acquaintances. She learned that Mai had booked a wedding package worth $100,000 at a reputable company. Those numbers only added to the fire of resentment in Lin's heart. She would make that lavish wedding go up in smoke, would make Mai taste the pain she had endured for so long. Lin spent the whole night staying up to search for information. She carefully looked up the records and contracts of the event organization company, looking for every weakness and loophole to attack. The information she gathered only strengthened her determination to take revenge. Lin's journey of revenge had begun. Lin spent the next week searching for information. She went online to learn about the company that organized the event organizer Everlasting Moments, the company Mai had signed a contract with. Their website was glossy, showcasing lavish weddings, but Lin noticed a few unusual points in the comments of their customers. Some complained about the lack of transparency in the contract, about the company frequently delaying progress. That was the clue Lin needed. She sought out an old friend, Khan, who was working in the event organization industry. Khan, with his many years of experience and deep understanding of the industry's nooks and crannies, helped Lin see more clearly the weaknesses of Everlasting Moments. Khan warned Lin about the risks, about how acting without thinking could lead to unpredictable consequences. But Lin was determined, her eyes steadfast, not wavering. "I need to do this, Khan. She has caused me too much pain," Lin said, her voice trembling but containing a strong determination. She told Khan about the pain she had suffered, about the jealousy and hatred that were gnawing at her soul. Khan listened silently, his eyes flashing with sympathy. Finally, he agreed to help Lin, but on one condition. Lin had to ensure that there would be no legal consequences. Khan helped Lin find the weaknesses in Mai's contract with Everlasting Moments. It turned out that this company was known for doing business in a hurry, often using tricks to increase prices, even using poor quality materials. Lin found evidence of the company's violations, missing documents, and unreasonable fees. Lin began to take action. She sent the evidence she collected to the authorities and secretly contacted some suppliers that Everlasting Moments was cooperating with. She cleverly spread rumors about the company's violations, seriously affecting their reputation. The constant calls and anonymous threats made the director of Everlasting Moments extremely worried. As the days went by, the situation became worse. Mai began to receive messages from the supplier, saying that they could not provide the service because of problems with Everlasting Moments. The wedding venue also announced that it was canceling the contract because the company had not paid in full. Mai panicked, calling Lin, her voice trembling, suspecting that her sister was behind it all. "Lin, do you know what is going on?" Mai asked, her voice choked with anger. Lin was silent, her eyes filled with sadness but still without regret. She had achieved her goal, but her heart did not feel as relieved as she thought. A feeling of emptiness and coldness enveloped her. Lin sat in front of the computer screen, the pale blue light shining on her pale face. Her fingers tapped on the keyboard, skimming through each website, each line of information about the event organization company, Everlasting Moments. The hatred was still there, but mixed with anxiety, a little fear of what she was about to do. She knew she was on a dangerous path, a path with no guarantee of the outcome. Lynn's goal was not only to ruin Mai's wedding, but also to make Mai experience the feeling of humiliation and abandonment like she had. But deep down, Lynn also wondered if this act of revenge was really worth it, if it could bring her peace or just a vicious cycle of hatred. Information about Everlasting Moments on the internet was quite scarce, mostly flashy advertising articles. Lynn needed to dig deeper, needed to find the weaknesses, the loopholes in the company's operations. She remembered Khan, an old friend who worked in the events industry, who could help her see the bigger picture. Lynn called Khan, her voice trembling with anxiety. "Khan, I need your help. I need to know everything about Everlasting Moments," Lynn said, her voice urgent. Khan was a little surprised by Lynn's urgent tone, but he still agreed to help, knowing that Lynn was in trouble. Khan met Lynn at a quiet coffee shop. He handed Lynn a thick file, filled with information about Everlasting Moments. "This is all I could find," Khan said. "You need to be careful, Lynn. Your actions can lead to unpredictable consequences." Lynn read each page attentively, her eyes sharp and focused. She discovered many irregularities in the company's contract, unclear fees, ambiguous terms, and easy to take advantage of. The more Lynn read, the angrier she became, the more her anger grew. "This contract is full of loopholes," Lynn said, her voice trembling with anger. "They easily increase prices, use poor quality materials without the customer knowing." Khan nodded in agreement. He explained more about the tricks this company often uses to deceive customers. Lynn decided to find a way to approach the project manager of Everlasting Moments, who was directly in charge of Mai's wedding. She knew that this person held important information, evidence that could help her destroy Mai's wedding. This would be a risky move, but Lynn was ready to face any risk. Lynn found the project manager's information on social media. She started following him, learning about his habits and interests. Lynn knew that approaching this person was not easy. She needed a meticulous plan, a clever strategy to be able to collect the necessary information. The project manager's name was Tuan, a middle-aged man, with an elegant and luxurious appearance on his Facebook profile picture. Lynn spent many days following his activities on social media, from work posts to sharing about his personal life. She found Tuan to be quite private, rarely sharing private information, but really enjoyed participating in events related to the event organization industry. Lynn planned to attend an event organization conference that Tuan would attend. She registered as a graphic designer, a field related to event organization work. This was a good opportunity for her to approach Tuan naturally, without arousing suspicion. The conference took place at a luxury hotel. Lynn dressed politely, put on light makeup, trying to create the impression of a confident and professional woman. She tried to approach Tuan during breaks, starting a conversation about topics related to the industry. Tuan appeared quite friendly and approachable. He shared his experiences openly. Lynn cleverly asked questions about Everlasting Moments, about the big projects that this company was doing. She tried to find out about the company's working methods, about the difficulties they often encountered. Tuan did not doubt Lynn at all. He shared quite a lot of information, including information that he should not reveal. "Actually, our company also faces many difficulties," Tuan said. His voice sounded a bit tired. "We often face pressure on time and cost. Sometimes, we have to use temporary solutions to meet customer requirements." Lynn listened to Tuan, her eyes flashed with hope. She had found the weakness of Everlasting Moments. This company often used poor quality materials, temporary solutions to save costs, which could lead to serious consequences during the event organization process. Lynn continued to talk to Tuan, trying to gather more information about Mai's contract with Everlasting Moments. She tried to tactfully ask about the specific details of the contract, about the problems that could arise during the implementation process. Tuan, because he was too confident in his abilities, revealed a lot of important information that could help Lynn destroy Mai's wedding plans. After the seminar ended, Lynn felt that she had enough evidence to carry out her plan. She said goodbye to Tuan with a smile on her face, but her heart was filled with anxiety and nervousness. She knew that she was on a dead end, a path full of risks and consequences. But Lynn had decided she would not stop until she achieved her goal. Hatred had clouded her reason, making her no longer see the line between right and wrong. Lynn sat in her small apartment, documents about Everlasting Moments lying scattered on the table. The desk lamp shone on her face, reflecting the dark shadows in her eyes. She was no longer the weak, vulnerable girl she used to be. Hatred had turned her into a cold, determined woman, willing to do anything to achieve her goals. She began to act. First, Lin sent an anonymous letter to the Department of Culture, Sports, and Tourism, denouncing Everlasting Moments for using an invalid business license. She knew that this was a serious accusation, which could lead to the company being suspended from operating. Next, Lin contacted a number of service providers for Everlasting Moments, revealing information about the company's frequent delays in payment, causing difficulties for the suppliers. She knew that this would make these suppliers hesitate to cooperate with Everlasting Moments, and might even refuse to provide services for Mai's wedding. Lin's actions were not secret. She wanted Mai to know that she was the one behind all these troubles. She wanted Mai to experience the same feelings of anxiety, fear, and despair as she had. Within a few days, Everlasting Moments began to encounter problems. The Department of Culture, Sports, and Tourism requested that the company provide additional documents to prove the validity of its business license. Some important service suppliers refused to cooperate with Everlasting Moments for financial reasons. Tuan, the project manager, became panicked. He kept calling Mai, reporting on the difficulties the company was facing. He tried to reassure Mai, but his voice was full of anxiety and helplessness. Mai, it seems like we're in some trouble, Tuan said, his voice trembling. It seems like someone is deliberately trying to make things difficult for us. Mai answered the phone, her face pale. She couldn't believe that things were so bad. She felt anxious, scared, not knowing how to solve these troubles. She began to suspect that someone was deliberately trying to sabotage her wedding. Lin watched everything from afar. She felt a bitter satisfaction. She saw the panic and despair in Mai's eyes through the phone calls. But at the same time, she also felt a little remorse, a little regret. She wondered if this act of revenge was really worth the damage it caused. Suddenly, another bad news came to Everlasting Moments. Two important employees of the company, the person in charge of decoration and the person in charge of sound, suddenly became seriously ill and had to be hospitalized. These are highly skilled and experienced staff, and their absence will cause great difficulties for wedding preparations. Lin is not directly involved in these two incidents, but she knows that this will further cause Everlasting Moments to fall into chaos. Mai was on the verge of collapse. She called Lin, tears in her eyes, begging for help. But Lin remained silent, unable to tell the truth. She wanted Mai to face the consequences of her actions on her own. Lin's silence made Mai even more desperate. Tears continued to fall down her beautiful face, now pale and haggard. She called her best friend, Tao, who had always been by her side during her difficult times. Tao's voice was filled with worry as Mai recounted her mounting troubles. Mai, don't panic. I'll help you, Tao said, her voice reassuring Mai. Just calm down. I'll find a way to solve it with you. Tao, a talented lawyer, immediately began investigating the case. She asked Mai to provide all the information related to the contract with Everlasting Moments. After carefully reviewing the contract, Tao discovered many irregularities, ambiguous terms, and easy to take advantage of terms. Mai, there is a problem with this contract, Tao said, her voice serious. They took advantage of these terms to increase the price, using poor quality materials without your consent. Tao advised Mai to contact a lawyer to protect her rights. She also thought that it was necessary to report the fraudulent behavior of Everlasting Moments to the authorities. However, Mai still hesitated, afraid that this would make things worse. Meanwhile, Lin was still following every development. She saw Tao's intervention, an intervention that she did not want. Tao's appearance not only gave Mai more strength to face the difficulties, but also reduced Lin's satisfaction somewhat. She began to feel a vague fear, a fear that her actions would be exposed. Lin remembered Khan's words. You need to be careful, Lin. Your actions could lead to unpredictable consequences. Those warnings now echoed in her mind, making her feel anxious and uneasy. She wondered if she should stop. The hatred was still there, but now it was mixed with fear and regret. She didn't know what to do next. She felt lost and alone in the game she had created. She had pushed things too far, and now, she herself could no longer control them. Things were getting out of Lin's control. She had caused a storm, and now, she herself was caught in that storm. She had to face the consequences of her actions, consequences that she could not have foreseen. Mai's phone kept ringing. The calls kept coming. Each call brought bad news. She sat on the sofa, her body slumped, her arms holding her head, her messy hair covering her pale face. The weak light from the window could not dispel the darkness that was enveloping the room, nor could it dispel the despair that was engulfing her soul. The main flower supplier, the one Mai had deposited a large sum of money, called to cancel the contract. The reason given was very vague, just a few problems that could not be resolved. But Mai understood, this was not a simple technical problem, but a deliberate refusal. Next was a call from the hotel where Mai had booked the wedding party. The hotel manager's voice was regretful but resolute. Dear Ms. Mai, we regret to inform you that, Due to some unavoidable reasons, we cannot continue to provide services to you on the scheduled date. The hotel manager's voice was faint, but Mai heard the determination in it. The wedding venue, the place she had dreamed of for so long, had been canceled. Everything seemed to collapse before Mai's eyes. She couldn't believe that, in such a short time, everything she had prepared, everything she had dreamed of, had now gone up in smoke. She trembled as she picked up the phone and called Tuan, the project manager of Everlasting Moments. Her voice was choked with despair. Tuan, everything. Mai couldn't finish her sentence. Tears kept falling. Tuan heard Mai's trembling voice. He understood that things had gotten out of control. He tried to comfort Mai, but his voice was also full of helplessness. Mai, calm down. We will find a way to solve it together, Tuan said, his voice trembling. But I'm afraid time is running out. Mai collapsed completely. She looked around the room, at the printed wedding invitations, at the clothes she had carefully chosen, at the sparkling wedding photos. Everything became meaningless. The wedding, a major event in her life, was now facing the risk of being completely canceled. She tried to call each supplier, tried to convince them, tried to find an alternative solution. But all efforts were in vain. Time was running out, and Mai understood that it was too late. She collapsed to the floor, hot tears falling onto the soft wool carpet. The pain, the despair, the helplessness, all were compressed in her heart, like a fierce storm destroying her soul. She could not understand why everything had become so bad. What did she do wrong? Why would someone want to destroy her happiness? In Mai's mind, Lin's image appeared clearly. She remembered Lin's angry face, her jealousy at the birthday party. Was Lin the one behind all this trouble? She didn't want to believe it, but in her heart, an indescribable doubt was creeping in, growing bigger and bigger. A weak knock on the door sounded, interrupting Mai's chaotic train of thought. She quickly wiped away the tears that were still on her cheeks, trying to calm down. Opening the door, she saw Tao, her closest friend, standing there with a worried expression. Mai, I'm here, Tao said, her voice gentle, full of comfort. She hugged Mai, letting Mai sob in her friend's arms. Tao had learned about the incident from Tuan, and she came here to help Mai overcome this difficulty. After Mai had calmed down a bit, Tao began to ask her about what had happened. Mai recounted everything, from the calls to cancel the contract to her suspicions about Lin. Tao listened attentively, her eyes shining with sharpness and determination. Mai, I think we need to do something, Tao said, her voice serious. I'll help you investigate who is behind all this. Tao began to contact acquaintances in the event organization industry. She learned about the unusual information Mai had encountered, about the suppliers who had canceled their contracts. Through the investigation, Tao discovered some suspicious points. Some suppliers had received anonymous calls with threatening and slanderous content about Everlasting Moments. Mai, I think I've found a clue, Tao said, her voice filled with excitement. It seems like someone deliberately made things difficult for you, and that person is very knowledgeable about the event planning industry. Tao gave Mai some information that she had collected. There were text messages and anonymous phone calls, all aimed at sabotaging Mai's wedding. Mai looked at the evidence, her heart pounding in her chest. She couldn't believe that someone could be so cruel. While Tao was diligently investigating, Mai sat quietly alone, thinking about her relationship with Lin. She recalled her childhood memories, the happy moments, the times when the two sisters shared joys and sorrows together. But now, everything seemed to be covered by hatred. She wondered, was Lin really the one behind all of this? Could her younger sister, the one she had always loved, be so cruel? Doubt and pain swirled around Mai, making her feel hopeless and tired. But she knew she had to find the truth, no matter how painful that truth was. Mai stood in front of Lin's house, clutching the envelope containing the evidence Tao had collected. Her heart was pounding, a mixture of anger, fear, and pain. She didn't want to believe that Lin would do this, but the evidence before her eyes was undeniable. Lin's apartment was simply decorated, but cozy. Lin was sitting on the sofa, reading a book, her face strangely calm. She looked up at Mai in surprise, her eyes wide open. Sister, what are you doing here? Lin asked, her voice trembling a bit. Mai walked in, placing the envelope on the table. She looked straight into Lin's eyes, her voice cold, without any emotion. What did you do to my wedding? Mai asked, her voice trembling with anger. Lin was silent, her eyes darting around the room, trying to avoid Mai's gaze. The silence dragged on, making the air in the room suffocating. I don't know what you're talking about, Lin stuttered. Stop pretending, Lin, Mai said, her voice rising. I have enough evidence. You're the one who contacted the suppliers. You're the one who caused all this trouble. Mai handed Lin the envelope. Lin opened it with trembling hands, reading each message, each piece of evidence Tao had found. Her face paled, her lips trembled. Lin looked at Mai. tears starting to stream down her face. She couldn't lie anymore. Sister, please forgive me, Lynn sobbed. I did it because I was jealous of you. Lynn told the whole story. She confessed that she had been jealous of her sister's happy and successful life. She felt abandoned, overlooked, and the humiliation at the birthday party had pushed her to the brink of despair. She thought that if she ruined Mai's wedding, she would feel better, she would get attention. I know I was wrong, Lynn said, her voice choking. I'm so sorry. Sister, please forgive me. Mai looked at Lynn. She saw sincere regret in her sister's eyes. She remembered the memories of her childhood, the times when the two sisters shared joy and sorrow together. But now, everything seemed to be covered by hatred. Tears rolled down Mai's face. She was in pain, not only because the wedding was canceled, but also because of the broken sisterly relationship. She didn't know what to do. She didn't know whether to forgive Lynn or not. Lynn, Mai choked, her voice filled with pain. You hurt me so much. Silence filled the room. Only Lynn's sobs and the tears that kept falling on Mai's face. Both sisters understood that this wound would not heal easily, and their relationship had been deeply damaged. The silence was long, heavy like an invisible blanket covering the two sisters. Mai looked at Lynn, looking at the tears rolling down her sister's face. The initial anger in her heart gradually subsided, giving way to a heartbreaking pain. She remembered the days of her childhood, the times when the two sisters shared candy together, skipped school together, dreamed of a bright future together. All those memories were now like broken pieces, sharp and painful. I didn't mean it, Lynn said, her voice gradually getting smaller, as if afraid of breaking the silence. I just wanted you to notice me, wanted you to know that I needed you too. Lynn's confession made Mai choke up. She understood that Lynn was not a cruel person. She was just a young, weak girl, looking for love and care from her sister. Jealousy, lack of affection had caused Lynn to act wrongly, causing pain for both of them. Mai slowly stood up, walked over to Lynn, and gently hugged her sister. Lynn trembled in Mai's arms, tears still falling. I know, Mai said, her voice softer. I know you're jealous, you feel abandoned. But you shouldn't have done that, Lynn. There are other ways for me to know you need me. Sister, can you forgive me? Lynn looked up at Mai, her eyes filled with tears. Mai looked deep into Lynn's eyes, seeing the sincere regret in them. She knew that forgiveness wasn't easy, but she also understood that forgiveness was necessary to heal the wounds of the heart and save the sisterly relationship. I forgive you, Mai said, her voice choked. But you have to promise me, you'll never do that again. We need to get through this together. Lynn nodded repeatedly, tears still flowing. She hugged Mai tightly, feeling the warmth and love from her sister. She knew she had made a big mistake, but she also knew she still had a chance to fix it. Sister, aren't you mad at me anymore? Lynn asked, her voice trembling slightly. You're mad at me, but you also love me, Mai said, gently stroking Lynn's hair. We're sisters, we have to be together, to overcome all difficulties together. The two sisters hugged each other, tears mingling together. The silence in the room was no longer heavy, but replaced by a warmth, a hope for a brighter future. The road ahead was still full of thorns, but with forgiveness and love, Mai and Lynn believed that together, they would overcome everything. Mai sat on the sofa, her phone cold in her hand. Messages from suppliers and wedding venues kept pouring in. Each message was like a bucket of cold water poured into her heart. The wedding she had dreamed of for so long, was now just a pile of rubble. Not only money, but also love, expectations, and the whole future she had drawn out. She stood up, pacing back and forth in the large apartment, but suddenly felt suffocated. The carefully taken wedding photos, the gorgeous wedding dresses, the blessings from friends and relatives, were now just painful memories. She called the manager of the event planning company, but his voice was full of fatigue and helplessness. He said that it was too late, the contract had been canceled, and the company could do nothing to save the situation. I don't know what to do, Mai whispered, tears streaming down her face. She called her mother, but she only comforted her in general terms, because she was also overwhelmed by this tragedy. The wedding preparations had taken up a lot of time, effort, and money from the whole family. Everything seemed to collapse. Mai felt hopeless. She didn't know who to turn to for help. She blamed herself, why she wasn't more careful, why she didn't check the contract more carefully. But now, regret couldn't save anything. Suddenly, the doorbell rang, interrupting Mai's chaotic thoughts. She quickly wiped away her tears and opened the door. Standing in front of her was Tao, Mai's best friend since college. Tao looked at Mai, immediately recognizing the pain on her friend's face. She hugged Mai tightly, letting Mai was able to cry out all her pain. Everything will be okay, Mai, Tao said, her voice soft and warm. We'll figure it out together. Tao listened to Mai tell her the whole story, from Lynn's humiliation to the wedding being canceled. She listened patiently, without judgment or criticism. After my finished, Tao didn't rush to give advice. She just stayed silent for a while, giving my time to calm down. Now is not the time to break down, Tao said, after a moment of silence. We need to calm down and find a way to solve it. The wedding can still be saved. Tao was a talented lawyer. She helped me review the contract, finding the weaknesses of the event planning company. She also helped me contact some other suppliers, looking for alternatives. Tao also helped me plan a smaller, more intimate, but still meaningful wedding. Tao's presence was like a ray of light in the dark night. She was not only a close friend, but also a strong spiritual support for me during this difficult time. With Tao's help, Mai began to regain her spirit, began to hope for a brighter future. But Tao, Mai looked up at her close friend, her voice choked. How can we make it in time? The wedding is less than 2 weeks away. Tao smiled comfortingly, her eyes filled with determination. Don't worry, we can do it. The wedding may not be as grand as the original plan, but it will still be a memorable wedding. We will hold a small, intimate ceremony, with only the closest loved ones. Tao got to work immediately. She made phone calls, sent emails continuously, contacted different suppliers. She searched for smaller wedding venues and services that fit her new budget. She also helped me choose a simple yet elegant wedding dress, instead of the elaborate, extravagant one she had worn before. Throughout the process, I witnessed Tao's tireless efforts. She saw her anxiety and stress, but also Tao's determination and sincere friendship for her. Tao's help was not only material, but also invaluable spiritual encouragement. Thank you, Tao, Mai said, her voice choked up. Without you, I would have completely collapsed. Don't say that, Mai. Tao replied, her voice gentle. We are friends. It's obvious that we will overcome difficulties together. The following days passed quickly. With Tao's help, Mai gradually regained her spirit. She began to participate in the preparations for the new wedding, albeit on a smaller scale. But she felt warmer and happier. She realized that happiness does not lie in luxury and splendor, but in love, sharing, and the presence of loved ones. While preparing, Mai received a message from her future mother-in-law. She expressed her concern, but also showed her support and encouragement. She said that she understood the difficulties Mai was facing, and she believed that Mai would overcome everything. This made Mai emotional. She realized that her future husband's family was always by her side, supporting her. That support became a great source of motivation to help her overcome difficulties. The new wedding was held simply but warmly. Only relatives, close friends of Mai, and her lover attended. There were no elaborate ceremonies, no elaborate congratulations, but in that atmosphere, everyone felt the sincere love that Mai and her lover had for each other. Mai looked at her lover, her eyes filled with happiness. She knew that, although the wedding was not as originally planned, this was the truly meaningful wedding. This was a wedding of love, of sharing, of support and encouragement from loved ones. Lynn lay sprawled on the bed, the dim light of the night light shining on her pale face. The initial elation had disappeared, replaced by an indescribable feeling of emptiness. She had achieved her goal, had taken revenge on Mai, but her heart was heavy, like carrying a large stone. She closed her eyes. The image of Mai's lavish wedding kept appearing in her mind, the gorgeous wedding dresses, the radiant smiles of the guests. But then, everything disappeared, replaced by chaos, the utter disappointment on Mai's face. That image kept haunting Lynn, making her unable to sleep. That night, Lynn had a terrifying dream. She dreamed that she was standing in the middle of a ruined wedding, surrounded by ghosts, angry faces. Mai appeared before her, her eyes full of resentment. Mai said nothing, just looked at her with eyes full of pain. Lynn tried to run away, but she couldn't move, trapped in the middle of that ruined wedding. Lynn woke up with a start, cold sweat drenching her entire body. The dim light of the night light could not dispel the fear in her heart. She sat up, her heart pounding, her breathing rapid. That terrifying dream was like a warning, a punishment for her evil deeds. Lynn looked around the room. The luxury and splendor suddenly became cold and lonely. She had achieved her goal, but she did not feel happy or joyful. Instead, she only felt empty, lonely and scared. She thought about Mai, about the years they grew up together, the happy and sad memories, the times they shared and confided. She remembered the times Mai helped her, the times Mai protected her. Hatred and jealousy had obscured their sisterly love. Lynn wondered, was this revenge worth it? Would she feel satisfied seeing her sister suffer? The answer was no. Lynn realized that she had made a huge mistake, a mistake that she might regret for the rest of her life. She remembered her mother's words. She always reminded Lynn about sisterhood, about the importance of family. Lynn ignored her mother's advice, letting jealousy and hatred control her actions. Now, Lynn has to face the consequences of her actions. Not only is it the loss of sisterly affection, but also the torment of conscience, loneliness, and fear. She has to choose between fleeting joy and long-term regret. Lynn knows that she needs to do something to correct her mistakes. She needs to apologize to Mai, needs to mend the sisterly relationship. But she doesn't know how to do it, where to start. Regret is tormenting her, making her unable to sleep well, unable to eat well. Lynn stands up, walks to the window. She looks out. The dawn is gradually breaking. A new day begins, and Lynn knows that she has to face the most difficult decisions of her life. She has to choose between joy and regret, between revenge and forgiveness. The cell phone on the table vibrated, breaking Lynn's chaotic train of thought. It was a text message from an unknown number. Lynn hesitated for a moment before opening it. The message was short. "I know everything. Meet me at the coffee shop." With the location, Lynn's heart pounded. A feeling of unease spread throughout her body. She didn't know who sent this message, but her intuition told her that this matter was related to her sabotaging Mai's wedding. All morning, Lynn was restless. She couldn't concentrate on her work. The images from last night's dream still haunted her. She kept looking at the clock, waiting for the appointment time. The feeling of guilt and fear weighed heavily on her shoulders, making her almost exhausted. At the appointment time, Lynn arrived at the coffee shop as in the message. The man sitting at the waiting table looked quite gentle, but his eyes were sharp, observing everything around him. He introduced himself as Mr. Kang, the owner of a small event planning company, a partner of the company Lynn had contacted to sabotage Mai's wedding. "Miss Lynn, right?" Mr. Kang's voice was warm, but no less serious. "I received information that you interfered with Ms. Mai's wedding planning contract." Lynn turned pale, but tried to stay calm. I don't understand what you're talking about." Mr. Kang gently placed a stack of documents on the table. "This is evidence. I know you didn't do it directly, but your actions have caused great damage to my company and to Ms. Mai." Lynn lowered her head, tears rolling down her cheeks. She knew she couldn't deny it. All of her actions were clearly recorded, in detail. Not only her contact with the company, but also the false information she had provided. I'm sorry," Lynn whispered, her voice choked. "I didn't want to hurt anyone. I was just too jealous." Mr. Kang sighed. "Jealousy is not a reason to hurt others. You have caused serious consequences, not only financially, but also mentally. Ms. Mai is in great pain." Mr. Kang did not blame Lynn harshly, but his eyes were stern. He talked about the legal responsibility that Lynn might have to bear, about the losses she had caused. But he also talked about the opportunity for Lynn to correct her mistakes. "I can help you solve this problem," Mr. Kang said. "But you have to apologize to Ms. Mai yourself, make up for the losses you have caused. And more importantly, you need to change." Lynn nodded, tears still falling. She understood that the road ahead would be difficult, but she had to face it. She had to take responsibility for her actions, and she had to do everything to make up for her mistakes. The regret and fear were still there, but now, beside them, there was a small ray of hope, a chance for her to correct her mistakes. The atmosphere in the small, warm room of the coffee shop was almost stagnant. Mai sat there, her face still marked with fatigue and disappointment. Her eyes were red, but no longer filled with anger like before. The collapse of the wedding had taken away many things, but also made her look back at everything more soberly. Lynn walked in, her appearance timid, her eyes closed. She carried a bouquet of white roses, humble flowers, meaning repentance. The silence lasted. Only the soft, melodious music played from a small speaker in the corner of the room. Mai looked at Lynn, looked at the tears rolling down her younger sister's cheeks. Hatred, pain, all seemed to disappear, giving way to fatigue and a deep sadness. Lynn put the bouquet of flowers on the table, her voice trembling. "Sister Mai?" Mai did not answer, just looked at Lynn intently. Her eyes were complicated, mixed with hurt, disappointment, and a little pity. Lynn continued, her voice choked. I'm sorry. I know I did wrong. I hurt you a lot. I have no excuses. I just want to say that I regret it." Lynn recounted everything, from the reason for jealousy, the anger at being looked down upon by Mai, to her plan to sabotage the wedding. She did not hide anything, not even her worst thoughts. Lynn cried, tears streaming down, wetting the tissue on the table. Mai listened, not interrupting. She looked at Lynn, looked into her sister's regretful eyes. She recalled her childhood memories, the times when they shared joys and sorrows together. She remembered the times Lynn needed her help, and she was always ready to be there for her sister. After Lynn finished telling the story, a long silence lingered in the space. Mai raised her hand to wipe the tears from her face, her voice hoarse. "You know, when the wedding was canceled, I not only lost a wedding, but I also lost faith in my family, in our sisterhood." Lynn nodded, tears still falling. She understood what Mai said. She had broken the most sacred thing between the two sisters. Sister, will you forgive me? Lynn asked, her voice trembling. Mai was silent for a long time, thinking about everything. She thought about the pain she had gone through, about the disappointment of her family and friends. She thought about the future, about the relationship between her and Lynn. She understood that forgiveness was not easy, but she also knew that if they kept holding on to hatred, both of them would be hurt forever. Mai sighed, her voice softening. You know how to repent, and that is very important. I forgive you, Lynn. But you have to understand that forgiveness does not mean that everything will go back to the way it was. We need time. We need the efforts of both of us to mend this relationship. Lynn hugged Mai, sobbing. Mai's forgiveness was like a glimmer of hope in the darkness, a chance for her to start over, to correct her mistakes. She knew the road ahead would be long and difficult, but she would try her best to do it all again. The two sisters hugged each other, tears mingling, marking the beginning of a long healing process. Mai let go of Lynn, her eyes looking at her sister containing sympathy and a little worry. But Lynn, Mai began, her voice still a little hoarse. Forgiveness doesn't mean is to forget everything. I'm hurt, not just because of the wedding, but also because of the lack of trust between us. I need you to prove your remorse with actions, not just words. Lynn nodded, her eyes red. She understood that Mai's forgiveness was not an end, but a new and challenging beginning. What do you want me to do? Lynn asked, her voice soft. First of all, Mai replied, I need you to take responsibility for the damage you caused. I don't want to sue, but you need to compensate the event company and other suppliers. Lynn nodded in agreement. That was a given, and she was willing to do anything to make up for the damage she had caused. But that wasn't enough. Mai needed more than that. And more importantly, Mai continued, I need you to change. I have to change my way of thinking, my way of looking at life, and especially my relationship with you. Jealousy and rivalry are never the solution to any problem. Lynn choked up. She understood that Mai not only asked for material compensation, but also wanted her to change from deep within. It was a big challenge, but she was ready to face it. She realized her mistake, and she wanted to change to become a better person. You're right, Lynn said, her voice hoarse. I will change. I will try my best to become a better sister in the future if I have the chance. Mai looked at Lynn, her eyes softening. She saw the sincerity in her sister's words. She understood that the road ahead would be long and difficult, but the two of them would walk together. She believed that the family affection between them was strong enough to overcome all difficulties and challenges. So, where do we start? Mai asked, a gentle smile on her lips. That smile did not completely erase the sadness in her eyes, but it brought a glimmer of hope. A glimmer of hope for the relationship between the two sisters, a glimmer of hope for the future. Lynn wiped away her tears, stood up, and looked at Mai with determined eyes. I will start by apologizing to everyone, and I will work hard to make up for the damage I caused. The two sisters held hands, a tacit agreement between them. Striking a marks the beginning of a new journey, a journey to heal emotional wounds and rebuild close sisterly bonds. A long and difficult journey, but they will walk together, face the future together. Time is like a river, quietly washing away the pain, leaving behind fading scars on the soul. After the storm, the sun rises again. Mai and Lynn, two sisters who once faced each other in hatred, now walk together on a new path. It is the path of reconciliation, the path of finding love again, a journey that requires time and effort from both. A trip to Dalat, the city of thousands of flowers, was planned as a turning point in the relationship of the two sisters. It was not a lavish, luxurious trip like what Mai had dreamed of for her wedding, but a gentle, simple trip with only the two sisters and peaceful moments. On the small car, through the winding mountain passes, the two sisters did not talk much. The atmosphere was no longer tense and heavy as before, but instead was a quiet, thoughtful atmosphere. Lynn looked out the window, admiring the beautiful natural scenery, her heart filled with regret and a little fragile hope. Arriving in Dalat, they rented a small, pretty house, located in the middle of a green pine hill. In the evening, sitting by the warm fireplace, Mai and Lynn began to share their thoughts. I'm still not angry with you, Mai said, her voice gentle. But I'm also tired. Tired of the anger, tired of the hurt. I want to leave all those negative things behind. Lynn nodded, tears welling up again. She knew she had caused too much pain to her sister. She had hurt not only Mai, but also her family and friends. She felt selfish and petty. I know you're truly sorry, Mai continued, and I also want to forgive you. But you have to remember, forgiveness is not a cover-up. You have to fix your own mistakes. Lynn nodded, her voice choked. I understand, sister. I will try my best. The days in Dalat passed slowly and peacefully. The two sisters walked together on the winding roads, together admiring the wild flowers along the road, together enjoying delicious food. They did not talk much, but their eyes and gestures had changed. The distance and indifference had gradually disappeared, giving way to closeness and intimacy. Together, they visited flower villages, admiring the brilliant colors of chrysanthemums, roses, sunflowers. Those flowers, like flowers of hope, of rebirth. One afternoon, sitting on a pine hill, looking down at the city in the distance, I said, I think we need to learn to forgive yourself, Lynn. It took me a long time to understand that. Lynn nodded in agreement. She understood that, in order to forgive others, she must first forgive herself. She had to accept her mistakes, learn to live with the scars in her heart, and learn to move on. The trip to Dalat ended, but the two sisters' feelings had been healed. The road ahead was still very long, but they had each other, and they continued on that road together. They understood that family and love were the most precious things in life, and they would always cherish that. Returning to Saigon, life continued with its daily hustle and bustle. Mai was still absorbed in her work at the company. The pressure still weighed heavily on her shoulders, but now, she felt lighter. Forgiving Lynn not only freed Lynn, but also freed herself. She was no longer haunted by hatred, by the pain of the past. Lynn was different. She still felt tormented and regretful about what she had done. She understood that Mai's forgiveness was not an easy thing. She needed to work harder to prove her remorse, to make up for the damage she had caused. One afternoon, Lynn came to see Mai. She brought a thick file. Mai, Lynn said, her voice trembling. I have completed the compensation to the event planning company and suppliers. Mai took the file, flipping through the pages. She could clearly see Lynn's efforts. She not only compensated financially, but also did everything to fix the mistakes in the previous wedding preparation process. Thank you, Lynn, Mai said, her voice gentle. I know you have worked very hard. It's nothing, sister, Lynn replied. It's what I should do. But compensation is only a small part of the healing process. What is more important is that the two sisters must learn to trust each other, learn to share, sympathize with each other. Mai understands that, and so does Lynn. I have a suggestion, Mai said. I want us to do something meaningful together. I think helping people in difficult circumstances will help us forget the pain of the past. Lynn nodded in agreement. She understood Mai's meaning. Charity work not only helps others, but also helps them regain balance in their souls, regain faith in life. They participated in a charity program together, helping poor children in remote areas. During those trips, they shared together, overcame difficulties together, and found joy in helping others. They went through touching moments that made them realize the true value of life. As the days passed, the wounds in their hearts gradually healed. The relationship between Mai and Lynn was no longer the same, but it was mended, strengthened by love, understanding, and tolerance. They learned a valuable lesson. Forgiveness, tolerance, and family love are the most precious things in the world. As time passed, the wounds in her heart gradually healed. Mai and Lynn, two women who once fought each other in hatred, have now found peace in their hearts. They do not forget what happened, but they have learned to accept, forgive, and move on. The charity trip to the remote highlands was a turning point, a milestone that marked the change in the relationship between the two sisters. The children in that poor village, with their clear eyes and innocent smiles, melted the ice that had long covered Lynn's heart. She saw how small she was in front of the difficulties they were facing. She saw that she had been too selfish when she only thought about herself, about her personal hatred. Mai quietly observed her sister. She saw a clear change in Lynn's eyes. The gentleness and warmth had returned. She understood that Lynn was truly remorseful and wanted to correct her mistakes. One evening, sitting by the crackling fire, looking at the twinkling stars in the night sky, Mai and Lynn confided in each other. I remember, when we were young, we often argued over small things, Mai said, her voice low, but we quickly made up. Why, when we grew up, did we let those small things ruin our sisterhood? Lynn nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. I was wrong, sister. I was too selfish, too impulsive. I didn't think about your feelings, about your family. Forgiveness isn't easy, Lynn, Mai continued, but I did it. Because I know, family love is the most precious thing. We only have one family, and we need to cherish it. Lynn hugged her sister tightly, choking back tears as she said, I promise I will never let those small things ruin our sisterhood again. Together, they helped the children build a small library, taught them together, and shared stories about life. They not only brought them material gifts, but also love, care, and hope. The trip ended, but the lessons Mai and Lynn learned were forever engraved in their hearts. They understood that happiness is not in luxurious material things, but in love, sharing, forgiveness, and tolerance. They learned to cherish family, cherish sisterhood, and cherish the true values of life. The $100,000 wedding was canceled, but they found something more precious, reconciliation, family, and a bright future. Together, they rebuilt a better, stronger relationship based on understanding and tolerance. And that is true happiness. After that, Mai focused on her work. Her career advanced rapidly. Success did not make her forget the valuable lesson from the volunteer trip. She understood that material wealth could not buy true happiness. She began to spend more time with her family, with Lin and her mother, who always worried about the two sisters. Family meals became warmer. Laughter resounded in the small house again. Lin, after completing the compensation, found a new job, smaller, but more suitable for her ability and passion. She no longer chased after material things like before, but focused on living a meaningful life. She volunteered for a nonprofit organization, continuing her work to help poor children. This job helped her find peace of mind, helping her forget the regrets and torments of the past. One day, Mai received a call from a close friend. My company is having a big charity project, looking for someone with experience and passion. I immediately thought of you. Mai thought for a moment, then agreed. She not only wanted to help others, but also wanted to share her experiences with Lin. She asked Lin to join this project. Lin was quite hesitant at first. She was still not very confident in her abilities after her past mistakes. But when Mai encouraged her, Lin decided to accept. This project was a big turning point in both sisters' lives. They worked together, shared experiences together, and overcame difficulties together. Lin proved herself to be a talented and responsible person. She contributed many creative and effective ideas to the project. During the working process, Mai and Lin understood each other more and more. They went through difficulties and challenges together and achieved success together. Their sisterly love grew stronger and deeper. One evening, after completing the project, the two sisters sat together and looked back on the journey they had taken. "I am so proud of you, Lin," Mai said, her voice filled with emotion. "You have changed a lot." Lin nodded, her eyes sparkling with happiness. "Thank you, Mai. I know I am lucky to have you." Together, they raised their glasses to celebrate the success of the project, and also to celebrate the restored sisterhood to a bright future that awaits them. They understand that happiness is not a destination, but a journey. And together, they will continue on that journey, together overcoming all difficulties, together creating meaningful things for their lives. Mai and Lin smiled brightly together, standing among a group of children in the highlands, the warm sunlight shining down. Mai and Lin's story is not only a story of revenge and forgiveness, but also a story of maturity, of facing mistakes and finding reconciliation. They were lost in greed, selfishness, and hatred, but in the end, they found their way back to themselves and their families. The lavish wedding seemed to be a symbol of happiness, but in fact it was just a flashy shell covering up hidden resentment and jealousy. True happiness does not lie in material things, but in love, sharing, understanding, and tolerance. Mai learned that success in her career cannot make up for shortcomings in her family. Lin learned that hatred only brings suffering. Forgiveness is the path to peace of mind. Their stories remind us of the importance of family, the value of love, and the power of forgiveness. Conflicts and disagreements in the family are inevitable, but the important thing is that we know how to face them, find ways to resolve them, and build a happy family together. Life always poses challenges, difficulties, but by facing them, by learning to forgive and be tolerant, we will find true peace and happiness. Please share your story, the lessons you have learned from life, and together spread positive messages to the community. Please like this video to support us to continue producing quality drama content. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other emotional stories. And please share your thoughts and experiences in the comments section below. We look forward to hearing from you. See you in the next profound drama stories.